PPC Beyond the Platforms. It's such a timely topic for ppc.zone July 2022, and a special one for our first ever event. So much of the conversation in our industry focuses on platform changes, and often begrudging the platform changes. So I'm really welcoming this opportunity to get pulled out of that day-to-day mindset through each of your perspectives. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales, and I created this event to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I'm here with Sarah Steeman, paid search manager at Marcus Thomas, who just spoke about returning to PPC in a time of change. I'm here with Doug Thomas, ethical marketing strategist at Magna Ventures, who just spoke about ethics in PPC advertising. I'm here with Armina Farid, SEO SEM specialist at Systems Soft Technologies, who just spoke about PPC stakeholder management. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And if you're watching this live right now on YouTube or LinkedIn and have any questions, please feel free to type it into the chat. Now, we do have a question that's been asked on both YouTube and on LinkedIn. After Sarah's talk, Sarah, what podcast do you recommend? And after Sarah, I'll ask the rest of our speakers to answer as well.
No, great question. So love Marketing O'Clock. I think if I had to pick a end all be all one, I do not miss it every week. In fact, you'll always find me tweeting about it. Also, because I don't get to always keep up with PPC chat, there is the PPC chat, and I'm trying to remember the after, you know what I'm talking about.
Roundup, yes.
PPC chat roundup. You can catch up on all the conversation that happened there. That's from Anu, who is also doing a conference. Plug for Anu, a friend of all of ours. And then also, this is a YouTube channel, but I'm one of those people who I can listen to a YouTube channel as a podcast. So basically I put it in and I'm not watching the screen, but I really like Solutions 8. They're super, super transparent. They say it how it is. They're funny. And yeah, I mean, all about listening and doing laundry. Thanks. Great question.
That's great. And Doug or Armina, do you have any podcast recommendations for our audience?
I like to listen to Today in Digital Marketing by Todd Maffin. It's every day, very short podcast, and it keeps you informed. I also like to listen to a couple of more sustainable and more inclusive driven podcast in marketing.
I'm with you, Armina. I also consume the Today in Digital Marketing podcast every day. I'm actually a premium subscriber, so I get the transcript emailed to me, and that's how I am able to keep up on that each day. Doug, are you a podcast person at all? And if not, how do you keep up on industry news?
So most of what I do to keep up on industry news is follow PPC chat. It is just the probably best place if you are a Twitter person, which totally understand if you are not. For PPC, the other big podcast that I listen to is from the I'm looking it up right now, the Center for Humane Technology. It's Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin. It's Your Undivided Attention. And it's a little bit broader than just advertising, but they obviously talk a lot about advertising. And so that's one where you end up getting some of those really interesting perspectives on what the right way to approach, say, social media advertising might be.
Got it. And one more great resource I found for help with inclusive marketing is Google has actually released its own guide to inclusive marketing that Google's own marketing team uses. It's called the All-In Guide to Inclusive Marketing, if you want to check that out. Great. So we have another question here for you, Doug. Doug, are you generally in favor of the transition away from third-party audiences in terms of maintaining user privacy? And how do you suggest advertisers conform to this?
Yeah. So in general, I've found that the best way to approach finding your audiences is by doing old school marketing research. I recently talked to somebody who is just starting out on YouTube advertising. They have a home services business, and they had said, we have an ad group that's running to audiences, we have an ad group that's running to keywords. What else could we do? And I said, are you running on this old house's YouTube channel? And that's the way that I would go about finding your audiences. What are the top 10 YouTube channels that they follow? What are the top 10 websites? And go back to a much older style of doing sort of display and that kind of advertising, and pick your placements, because that way where your ads are running, and you're not worrying about the audience. You just know which website they're on, and that matches your audience.
It sounds like you're advocating for more content-based or context-based targeting rather than the audience targeting that's really swept the digital marketing universe over the last decade.
Yeah, and that's really influenced by Tim Huang's research and by Augustine Fu's research. Both of their research kind of points in that direction.
Thank you, Doug. And we have a question here for Armina. How do you deal with multiple stakeholders with competing interests? Any advice you have there based on your experience?
I'll start with, identifying the priorities. What is best for the company and where we can align with companies' objectives and take it from there. So even though we work with multiple stakeholders, everybody has their own viewpoint, but identifying which one you need to give a priority to that aligns with the overall objective of the stakeholder who has requested you to run the campaign, I think that will help to filter down the, which way to go.
Who's paying the bill at the end of the day? Always a key thing to keep in mind. And something I wanted to ask each of you who's had plenty of experience in PPC and comes at the industry from a variety of different perspectives here, what advice would you have for someone who is just starting their career in PPC right now? If you were talking directly to them right now, first day on the job in PPC, what's one piece of advice you would give to them? Who would like to go first?
I mean, I guess I can, since I feel like I've been through a lot of new hires, I'll be honest. Really to learn to tell the story of what happened in an account. I think the biggest thing I've seen just time and time again is just a complete regurgitation of the report. Your client can read that. I want to know if impressions were up. Why were impressions up? We don't necessarily manage to impressions. Tell them that. Tell them why it's on the report to help tell that story. Explain the clicks, explain the click-through rate and how that's really telling people that this is showing the level at which your ad is really resonating with the searcher. Really dig deep and get into that, and then use that data to guide them to what you'll be doing next in the account. And I think that's super important, and it enables the people that you're meeting with to maybe, to Armina's point, the stakeholders start to understand, okay, here are the metrics that are moving. Here's the story. Here's why I'm choosing to move with this data versus that data. And I think it helps avoid a lot of those things.
The storytelling piece, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say don't take shortcuts. When you are young, you are getting into this, so do it hard way. Get into it. Have grit to go into the, as far as possible, and understand the, granularity, and understand the nuances, understand the social aspect of it. I'm talking from stakeholders management perspective. So get into that.
Absolutely. Doug, anything you'd like to add? Advice for a fresh PPCer?
Yeah. So, new folks is one of my favorite things. It's probably some of the proudest moments that I had working in agencies is really seeing people grow into their roles. And I think the biggest thing is to sort of trust your instincts as well. If something sounds weird on its face, to go, yes, that sounds weird, and take the time and look into it. And really, in that same kind of way of finding the, actual story behind it, be able to explain it to someone, these kind of things. The best way to do that is by sort of following your nose naturally.
Absolutely. And maybe in the beginning you don't have instincts, and that's okay. If something seems a little off, look into it, and those instincts are what you're going to hone over time. And one thing that I would add is don't try to beat the algorithm or trick or hack the platform. Like Google and Meta and the others, they know what they're doing. And so the advice I always give is try to understand how the platform works and why it might work that way and why a feature might have been designed that way, and figure out how to make that work for you or your client's goals rather than trying to work against it and get around it somehow. All right, this event is wrapping up. Thank you once again to Sarah, Doug, and Armina for joining us this evening. And also a special thank you to Cory, Henke, and Jim Banks for mentoring our speakers. Next month, PPC Zone August 2022, I'm excited to present e-commerce PPC Let's Get Ready for the Holidays, featuring Cory Henke, Mandeep Kaur, and Menachem Ani. Go to ppc.zone to set a reminder. You won't want to miss it next month. To learn more about PPC Zone and our speakers, or to apply to speak at an upcoming event, visit ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. You can find me on Twitter at Jyll Saskin Gales, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the zone.